Going on, everybody? This is John Hester here at Hester's Motorsports here in Raton, Mexico. We're showing off the new Teryx S and comparing with some other models here. This is a standard Teryx 4. So we're going to go over all that changes here. So the S stands for suspension change. 95% of these two match, are identical: chassis, engine, seats, body, frame, roll cage, etc., etc., etc. are all identical between these, so there's no changes in parts for that. So windshields will be the same, tops will be the same, bumpers will be the same, etc., 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 etc. All this is just the new model with the new suspension system. So we're going to go over that with you real quick here. So starting with a standard, both of these are 2021 models. You can clearly see the difference in width of the two. Quick showing of the shock. That is a 36 millimeter shock, or not a 2.0 like Teryx or Kawasaki claims. The 2.0 is only in the rear. The front is not. It's more like 1.5 inches. This now has 2.0s front and rear. You can clearly see that the shock is bigger. So this is a 46 millimeter shock body, which is a 2.00. That one right there is a 1.5. The rear is a 2.00 on the old and a 2.00 on the new. You can clearly see the difference in stock original and S. So first thing, you can definitely tell the A-arms are longer. The shock is mounted out farther. A good deal. So let's get to the numbers. So here's the numbers. Okay. Get to the numbers here. The front A-arms are exactly 2 inches longer on each side, giving a total track width of a 4-inch gain over stock. This one is 60 inches in the front, 62 inches in the rear. You can see the rear tire ever so slightly is outside, and this one is on the inside. This one is now both just on the outside. From the outside of the tire to the outside of the tire is 64 inches to a T, front and rear. So the front has gained 2 inches longer on each A-arm, giving it a total track width of 64, outside of 64 inches. This also gains in the wheel travel department because a lot longer A-arm. So 2 inches on each side, very nice setup. As you can clearly see, these are designed exactly like the Kawasaki Teryx. So you have a little bit of a high clearance down here. Then you have the swoop design. This allows for the shock to be located further out and a longer shock. So instead of, if this was completely straight, the shock would have to be shorter in order to fit this upper tab. So that's how they get a longer shock in there as well. Those specs will be coming down the road. So as far as shock specs and stuff like that, right now we're just showing the difference in between the two. Back over to the original, you can clearly see what I'm talking about. So no arch, straight arm, shock is shoved that way, and a lot shorter, quite a bit shorter, like quite a bit shorter. I'll put it this way, the shock on this one is longer than the rear shock on this one. So we got some new changes to do to our Hester edition Elkas. We will come out with the S model Elkas as quickly as possible. Hopefully we should have those available by probably May. We will have them in stock in different stages. So once I get those and I get them prototyped, I will be able to tell you exactly the potential, the full potential of this, but it has some really nice potential just by all the basics of information. Now, ground clearance. Now, sitting right here, you can pretty much say, hey, this one has a little bit more ground clearance. And as it sits completely unweighed, yes, it does have slightly different. But it is pretty insignificant in between the two. This one is like 11 and a half, and this is at 12 inches. So, you know, it does have a little bit of a gain. The biggest thing is, let me get back up front here. The biggest gains are definitely up front over the old generation. This one, from a dead stock, unweighed height, and then we lifted it to find out its true down travel. Down travel is the sag of the suspension. You want to have some down travel because as your machine goes in and out of bumps, you want the tire to drop in and out of those bumps instead of the machine max out, then the machine rocks in order to dip in and out of those bumps, making for a very rough ride. In stock form, bone stock, because this one has no suspension modifications. This one is sold, it just has a front and rear windshield, light bar, and a winch. Very little modifications done to it, but zero done in this department. So we are looking basically stock suspension to stock suspension. This one, from where it is now to its maximum droop, its maximum down travel is 2.5 inches. So this only has 2.5 inches of down travel. This one has 4 inches of down travel, almost double the down travel. So yes, everybody out there say, wow, you mean I could put a 4-inch lift kit on it? Well, yeah, if you wanted to ride like shit, sure, you can definitely do that, to be blunt and honest. But you don't want to do that. Just stick with, you know, maybe a 2-inch lift kit. But if you do a 2-inch lift kit, you'll now have the down travel of this one with no lift kit. Because if you put a 2-inch lift kit on this, you only have a 1/2 inch down travel. That's why with the lift kit, it makes it feel like it rides a bit rougher. It's not so much in the suspension riding rougher. It's your machine is having to dip in and out of every single hole, which makes it load and unload its weight back and forth for every bump. And that's why a lot of the times with just a lift kit, it rides worse. So that's basically why when you put a lift kit, you're taking out the down travel. You're losing that. This has 4 inches, so a 2-inch lift kit, you're going to have 2 inches of down travel below that. So this one's going to definitely ride with the lift kit once they become available. And you know, I'm going to try to get specs as best and quickly as I can so I can get them over to one of our lift kit builders named Brute Performance and see if they can start building some lifts for these right away and at least have them out on the market. Now, the rear is not quite as affected as the front on the new chassis design. Excuse me, let me turn this heater off here, sorry. Sorry, I had to turn the heater down. I just didn't want to have any of that background sound because it is snowing outside, it's freezing cold. Back to this. The rear A-arms are 1 inch longer. These are 1 inch longer. The front are 2 inch longer. That's why it is dead even compared to this one. So, if you put the same aftermarket wheel on this one to have this dead flush, say we put a 4+3. A 4+3 will bring this out 1 inch on each side. So we'll be at a 66-inch width with just changing the wheels. You'll want to run a 1-inch wheel spacer in the back because the rear is narrower. Why? Because of wheel offset. See how much deeper this is compared to the front? It's much shallower on the front. So that is why, because we've already tested this. So if you want this S model to be wider, like say you want to run a 4+3, you'd be fine with a 5+2 and keep it right in a 64. So there you go. Everybody with the 64 with trail restrictions, like up in Wisconsin and some of those places, you'll want to run a 5+2 aftermarket with a 1-inch spacer in the back, and then you'll be dead even front and rear. See, right now we run the same wheel spacer front and rear, same offset and everything like that. So here is a perfect example. So we have the S model, bone stock. We have a normal Teryx, bone stock. Then we have, let me move this trash can, some more machines that we're building over here. All these machines are sold and customizing, but here is a Teryx 4 with Super ATV high clearance arched arms, Stage 3 Hester Edition Elka shock package, 30-inch motoclaws on the stock wheels with 2-inch wheel spacers. This is sitting dead even at 66 inches front and rear because of the wheel spacers. But yeah, I mean, you can just see the difference. The other thing, that even though it has way more ground clearance, we are sitting at almost 15 inches. We still need to do some tuning. I like to sit these at about 14.5 inches of ground clearance with this type of a setup, 30 inches in our shocks. But right now it's sitting at about 15. We still need to take it out, drive it and everything, so they'll probably set in perfect. These are right out of the box. No tuning, no nothing done to them yet. But we're at 15 inches of ground clearance, 11.5 inches of ground clearance, 12 inches of ground clearance. Our shocks on this older package, what I call older because that's just the way the design is, this one has 11 inches of wheel travel in the front and 11.5 inches of wheel travel in the rear. This is 8 inches in the front, 8.3 inches in the rear. So by changing to our shocks, you gain 3 inches in the front and 3.2 inches to be dead even. I just call it 3 inches, but that's the wheel travel difference. This, I can put a jack underneath here and I could raise this thing up 4 inches by that sucker to come all the way down. I'm sorry, not 4 inches, 3 inches. 3 inches of down travel at 15. That's why I like to set it about 14.5. So we're actually about 3.5 inches of down travel, but you know, a lot of up travel. 14 to 14.5 inches is the sweet spot with 30-inch tires. 13 to 13.5 inches of ground clearance of your ride height with 28s. So anybody with our shocks, there's some good specs for you. But you know, huge differences. So we can't wait until we can get our new shock package built onto this, because we not only have a longer arm to play with, which is going to yield more wheel travel, we're going to have a lot longer shock on here, so it's going to be pretty epic on there. Here's a kind of a funny thing that we figured. Okay, so these are 2-inch longer A-arms. If we put a 2-inch wheel spacer and a 4+3 offset, we will have the exact same length pivot from pivot point to the outside of the wheel as an HCR long travel. Dun dun dun. Now, when you start adding the spacers, you're going to start getting some scrub steering, a little bit more steering feedback into the steering wheel. But so things to consider when doing a lot of that. But noticeable on high-speed stuff, but rock crawling and everything, which these Terexes are just wicked for rock crawling and all that. It's quite a nice improvement. So we're going to see some nice new numbers. Now I cannot tell you how good this rides because we just got it in. It's snowing outside. I mean, I don't want to take this out and get it all filthy and muddy and dirty, and then somebody see it and say, oh, you know, yeah, you can take $5,000 off it because it's dirty now, right? You know, that's how it works, right? Got to, you know, 0 miles as clean as possible. I mean, that's just how it works. But I do want to take one of these out whenever I can, whenever it dries up. And I do want to see if they still have the same, I'm sorry, Kawasaki, I don't want to say this, but terrible valving that the old model has. That does not, it rides adequate. It rides okay. I can guarantee you 100% this is going to ride better than that. Guaranteed. and I can guarantee that one's going to ride better than this one. But the nice thing is, this also has a totally different wheelbase. The wheelbase is right at, I'm just going to round it and say 3 inches. I know it's a smidge under 3 inches longer wheelbase, which that's what we do with arched arms on the Super ATV. 1.5 inches forward on the front, 1.5 inches rearward on the back, over stock. So we increase the wheelbase by 3 inches on that platform. By doing so, let me show you. Clearance. You can see I cannot even come close. I mean, if I turn my foot sideways, and this is a size 10 Sketcher steel toe, okay? I mean, look at that whole thing through. You can fit bigger tires. You can fit up to 30s on an S model, no problem. Rear end, look at that. Can't even get my foot in between there. S model, bam diggity. So the A-arms are not only longer, shocks are not only longer, gives you more travel, more capabilities. You can fit 30-inch tires on the S model without buying anything else. Ta-da! Thank you, Kawasaki. Difference in price. Now, of course, keep in mind this one has accessories. Stock for stock. Now, granted, this one is $200 more because of the digital camo, but a regular LE, just trying to be as technical as possible. The difference in between a regular one and an S model is $500. No brainer. No brainer. Because the A-arms from Super ATV retail for $375 for the front, $375 for the rear. Well, basically $374.95. Then you need to get the bushings, which I would probably love to do the bushings in these, make it better. But you look at, you know, bushings and arms, either a lift kit or shocks or whatever, in order to fit 30s. 30s. That's it. Just put 30s on. And once the lift kits become more available, be able to get them up pretty good. The nice thing is, you could buy an S model, say you want a 6-inch lift kit and portals and all that. All of that, this will all come off and you just bolt all that stuff up. So the S model or regular model does not matter when you're completely changing all the arms and everything. You know, if you're going to put the 6-inch lift kit, here's a little secret hint. We are working on a mid-travel with 3-inch longer A-arms front and rear to fit the original one. It'll come with axles, your choice of 5 stages of our Hester Edition Elka shock package. We're finalizing. We're still doing the last bit of stuff on that before we release it. It's not ready yet, so please give me some time. It'll probably be about late April, May before that becomes available. But we will have a mid-travel for these that is going to be roughly around 13 to 14 inches of wheel travel. So, and since it's a 3-inch longer arm front and rear, it's going to stick out. It's going to look like a trophy truck. But you'll be able to get the whole package, depending on the shock you choose, for less than, I mean, heck, you can get the mid-travel with stage 1s, which is a massive upgrade with our stage 1 Hester Edition Elkas, for less than an HCR long travel kit with no shocks, just brackets to fit stock shocks. So some exciting news that I just wanted to kind of throw out there. I just wanted to kind of show everybody, do the best I can here. Limited on time, I had to kick all the mechanics out of the shop so I can get this done real quick. Wanted to show everything, but that is all the gist of it. On the S model, you have a lot better arm, you have more wheelbase, you have more clearance to fit bigger tires. I mean, right out of the gate, you can fit 30s on it with no other modifications, no lift, no nothing. Just throw 30s on it, bam, diggity. Unlike the older generation, 28 was the biggest you could run with a 2-inch lift kit. I'm excited to see how these shocks are valved. I mean, just an initial feel, you know, just kind of hopping up and down on it here. I mean, it doesn't really feel, but of course, yeah, it feels a little plusher. So I'm excited to see. But like I said, I mean, you can definitely tell, you know, the size of the shock compared to the size of the shock on the S. And then these are stage 3 Hester editions, which is still ever so slightly larger. But I mean, you can see, I mean, that setup does yield more than that setup. So, you know, if you have a Teryx, trust me, it's cheaper to give us a call and we could get you set up with arms and bushings and shocks for less than you'll lose trading in for one of these just to get the better suspension. So, trust me, we can definitely make your Teryx ride on an entire different universe better than stock. So I want to thank everybody for watching. Really appreciate it. Be sure to click the like down below there. Give us a like. Leave us any comments. Try to answer as much questions as we possibly can. But we did want to show what they did on the S model. Right now, I mean, all you can do is look at pictures. You can just look at specifications, and it just says 10.7 inches of wheel travel in the front, 10 inches in the rear, compared to 8-inch and 8.3. That alone is an improvement. But now you get to see that it's more than just a longer shock. Everything, the shocks are bigger, or front shock is now a 2.0 front and rear. This one was a 1.5 front, 2.0 rear. So bigger shocks mean more oil, more nitrogen, more capacity, bigger valving stack, stuff like that. So the potential of this shock being a lot better than that shock is there. Did they do the right valving? Time will tell. We'll just have to see. But when I'm done with it, this sucker is going to be longer with our 2-stage high-speed and low-speed valving stacks that we do on all of our Hester editions. Custom lengths, custom compression. We're going to have this sucker set to where we will maximize it, and I'm really hoping, I'm really shooting for this sucker to be about 13 inches of wheel travel. So one last thing. If you're one of the people that, hey, I'm going to put a 6-inch lift kit and I'm going to take all this off, let me just answer, everything on here will fit on that. So if you take all of that off and you go with this, you know, what you'll have to do is you'll have to buy those shocks to fit the 6-inch lift kit right now. So you could probably work a deal with somebody and say, hey, give me your shocks and give me X amount of dollars. Here's my axles, here's my arms, here's my shocks, and you just made, and tie rods. You'll have to swap tie rods. The tie rods are totally different. It's not just an extension. The whole tie rod is different. A lot different. So there's a standard. And here's the S model. The rod itself is quite a bit longer. So yes, all of that can fit. So just so you know, trying to help and figure out as many scenarios as I can in my head. HCR long travel. Yes, HCR long travel will fit in here. Because all that, I mean, granted, you'd want to do it with shocks, change the shocks and everything. No, you could do it with the brackets too. You could keep those shocks, put HCR arms. That could be some pretty good potential right there. So, hey, you want an HCR kit with just the arms and brackets? Keep those shocks? Hey, let me know. I'll work you out a deal. We do HCR long travel kits all over the country. Oh, let me show you what an HCR looks like. It's going to get a little noisy here while I open this up. This is a Teryx 4 with an HCR long travel. We still got a lot of work to do, but that's with the King shocks, no brackets. But right now this is sitting at about 74 inches of width because of the offsets and stuff like that. The arms are 5 inches longer than the stock. So there's stock arms, 2-inch brute performance bracket lift 28s, HCR, King shocks, 30s. So that kind of gives you an idea in between that. So, and this one is here. We're prototyping the Hester edition Elkas for the HCR. Gonna have God mode shocks on a God mode A-arm. So if you got HCR long travel and you want to take that sucker to crank it to 11 and rip the knob off, then we're gonna have shocks, all 5 stages. Yeah. Pretty awesome. So thank you all for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Trying to do more and more content. I know I went a little long on this, but I just wanted to try to mentally answer every question that somebody could throw at me as best I can, show the differences in between the two, and try to get you as much information as possible on the new S model Teryx. Now, of course, the Teryx 2-seat S, everything's identical. Just chop the seats out and put a longer bed. There you go. You know, it's the same machine. Teryx and Teryx 4, everything's going to be the same. Okay? Thank you. Come again. So, thank you all for watching. Really appreciate it. Give us a like. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hester's Motorsports. We're also on MeWe. Look for Hester's Motorsports. And if you subscribe this channel, click that notification bell. Keeps you up to date. And we will try to do our best to keep bringing more and more content, exclusive content as possible. Thank you all. God bless.